Mike, I was so proud of you last week when I saw that you had finally joined Twitter. You've been all over Reddit and Instagram and Threads even maybe, but when you
That's
finally
right.
made your Twitter account, I was proud of you. And I've been on Twitter 3, 5 years now, whatever it might be, heavy usage for three, and grown a following just as a regular guy. I've been on
Hmm.
the right side, so I've never been banned or anything like that, which a lot of
You've been
people
on the
report.
correct side, apparently.
Well, a
Yeah.
lot of people, report being banned or talking about QAnon having a million plus bans.
Sure, sure.
And, I never really fell into that. So maybe that's why I avoided that. But I heard that you had some experience I want you to talk about. And,
That's right.
to spoil it, you've already deleted your account less than a week
That's
in.
right.
Oh,
That's
God.
right.
Oh, God.
So,
All
all right,
right.
so I'll dive into my experience here. So it's kind of interesting, and this is why I always try to warn people, and we'll have a clip to follow shortly thereafter. Is every bit of these algorithms are giving the things that we biasly like, right? Like the confirmation bias. So we're going to keep liking things that fit that narrative, that worldview. And very shortly after, this algorithm is only going to give you the echo chamber that you've designed. I have three different YouTube accounts between the devices in my home. And it's interesting how you watch one, leaning type of media, if you will, and then the other side, and how quickly that algorithm buckets you into a certain type of media. So this is mainly the part of the biggest problem why we can't have a discourse on anything, right? We're not using the same language anymore. So again, another clip I will get to later. We have politicians that like to reference history who we know they don't even read the legislation. Their staffers are doing it for them and giving them the spark notes. So how they have time to really read, thousands of pages of historical text and primary sources to, guide the reasons why that they're legislating certain things. So back to the whole Twitter thing. Since day one, I was notified that my visibility was being throttled, which I kind of understood. It's a big problem on many platforms, either bots or just seditious behavior, right? People who are trying to, ruin the platform for whatever reasons, crusading as it's called sometimes, or brigading. So I understood this, but then the information that they gave me was to, increase my human behavior, follow certain buckets of people and then just comment and like, etc. Just act human was essentially what I was told. Granted, I had a little bit more availability over these last few days as I'm finally getting over a sinus infection, but I arguably was not, posting any kind of incendiary information. I like to think that it was extremely centrist, moderate, left of center positions. I'm following buckets of both conservative and left-leaning pundits, so the whole experience was bewildering to me as day after day of doing all of the things I was prescribed to do by Twitter, I would get warnings that my account is being flagged again, for suspicious behavior. I have 11 followers and I followed 100 people. I'm not using like external programs to improve my organic growth and shit like that. So it was just bewildering to me. So this happened for a third day. This happened for a fourth day. And now I'm getting really upset because I noticed
And
that
they're notifying you all throughout. They're sending you emails or notifications or something saying, hey,
no,
you're having issues.
every time I open my app, I'm getting directly from Twitter telling me that my account is being throttled, right? So this is not like I'm being shadow banned, right? Like, no, I'm being told by Twitter what to do, how to fix it, and every time it's resulting in more and more flags on my account. And again, I don't want to just say that Elon Musk is nefariously and systematically trying to silence left of center voices. It's more to speak to the fact that he has no idea what he's doing when he's running this company. The fact that there are so very few auditors and actual real people left working at his company are part of these problems, right? So my experience is, and if everyone like you like Twitter, use it by all means. We all have those choices and stuff like that. You have perspective because you've been on the platform for so many years prior to many of these changes, so I guess you're kind of grandfathered in, if you will. But I've never encountered these issues on any other platform, not even close. It's far and above so much worse, but I'll let you interject. I've stolen the mic for a while.
Yeah, I have a couple comments because listen, I've been on the platform like you said for a while, and I've been posting what would probably be considered, I don't even consider it edgy, right? But it's what would be potentially banned on YouTube.
Envelope
right?
pushing, if you will.
You and I, for example, on this show, probably couldn't talk about election interference the way that I would probably want to talk about it. I've been banned on TikTok before for it. Actually, I wanted to talk about that later, maybe. I've been banned on YouTube and TikTok previously, appealed both of them, and both of them got overturned. So I have 0 strikes. But I linked to specific court
there's an
cases
effective
referenced
process
and all
in
that.
place.
Well, no. So here's what I was going to say about Twitter. I don't believe that you're getting throttled on the basis of the content that you're posting. I think that it would be,
Which is my point.
Right. So what is happening is that you're a power user of the app, and they definitely implemented the paid checkmark feature where you get, a
Right.
higher level of usage of the app. So you're able to read. I mean, I've never experienced it when as a free user because I've always I paid the $8. It's a cup of coffee, at Starbucks. That's the
Right.
cost of it. So. And,
Totally
and
understand.
I'm on it hours a day, so it makes sense. But the point would be that they're fighting a bot problem the same way that you can DDoS attack a website and shut it down. That's what's happening.
Sure.
And the way that Twitter has become so prolific in the headlines and among the polysphere, they did need to put some sort of check and balance in place to say, you know what, we can't just have the average Russian bot farm coming in here
Sure.
and putting all of their responses on everything. So I got to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. There's probably hundreds of thousands of new accounts made virtually every day, millions of pieces of content to sift through. So, I got to say, Mike, I was disappointed. I think that it was a little bit of frustration. Hey, I'd be willing to pay the $8 for you. In fact,
Sure.
I pay the premium plus.
No,
I think it's $19 a month.
I totally get it. You offered to sponsor me. I totally understand that. So I'm going to push back on a few things, right? I want to take Elon to task on a few things.
Yeah.
So I don't have any other platform that I have to pay for that I can get similar management of either bots or moderation of discussions and stuff. So again, to quote an experience that I had on Meta, on Instagram specifically, at two separate occasions while commenting on AP Reuters articles, I'm almost certain it's from using the words deaths, killed, etc., and which is very, very difficult when it's in the headline of the AP Reuters article talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict, and I'm not sure how else you can not use those words. But
you need to be able to discuss heavy topics. I think that's true on Twitter
absolutely.
as well. Those
Which is why
harsh words will get you deboosted. Absolutely.
But this is why I applaud Reddit, because it is a dumpster fire in many areas, but you are very easy to able to curate your content and your timeline, and then you enter a sub. So you can choose to, participate in some discussions, and if they're really just, not for you, vitriolic, not based in reality, etc., that's your choice to be able to do that, So for someone like me who wants to methodically and deliberately expose myself to other sides of the aisles and political spectrums, it's very easy to do so on a platform like Reddit. But I do want to finish my Instagram story. So twice while commenting on these AP Reuters articles, I was notified by Instagram that I'm being muted for like a week or 2 weeks, and it was only around AP Reuters articles. And as much as I was furious at the time for not being able to comment on news for words that were being used in the headlines, and I didn't speak in webdings like an asshole using the @ symbol and the number 3 in the middle of place of letters and stuff like that, I got very frustrated. But I looked in retrospect that week away gave me some mental health space to distract to back up from the conflict a little bit and realize there's a lot of things that I can't control, and maybe the things that I do know how to control, and I could speak to the problems that are going on there. But certainly it was a very vitriolic time, and that whole comment section was on fire. I will tell you that right now. So that it was probably for the best.
I'm going to stop you, Mike. That's like, okay, you're thanking the app for giving you a mental relief week. Come on,
are we not talking about all the problems with social media in today's generation? And again, it's not to write off that there's no problems with Meta, but what they've maybe done, someone who's getting too overhanded, that pushing them back. No,
that's
for a
like
week.
when you're fighting with your wife and you say, we have to go to bed now and stop this discussion so when we wake up we're more calm. The truth is, I don't think that helps with your communication. I don't think that helps with discourse. They're putting you out of the arena because likely people on the other side that just are trolling you are reporting you. That's the only reason.
In Twitter, I'm never in the arena. I'm only person to comment on someone's comments, and I can't see those 2 comments that are on his page. So
I hear you. Listen, I actually appreciate your anecdote on Twitter because I see for years now people on the right who say, I've been shadow banned, I'm shadow banned, and I've never believed it. I have always subscribed to the school of thought, hey, if you're not getting views, your content sucks. So make better content and people will get
pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make a better profile.
Yes, it's a very capitalist approach to growth on social media. No, but truth is, you have to be engaging. And a post like, "Is anybody seeing this? I am shadow banned." It gets 100 likes because everybody is of this school of thought that, oh, I'm being shadow banned. No, the truth is, Mike, not to be harsh, right? You have 9 followers. You're not going to get much traction, and the app isn't going to really weight your opinion that much. And
totally
listen,
understand. But I
think
don't
on
have to
Instagram,
give
too.
I don't have to give an $8 allowance, payment to any other social media platform to be able to fully participate in an experiment. Like I said, when I was muted for posting on AP Reuters articles, I could still do every single thing else that the platform had to offer. I could still go to another news media platform and talk about the Palestine-Israel conflict on there, probably until I got banned for not speaking at WebDings. But I will admit to that. Again, this is not to say that Twitter is systematically trying to silence certain voices. I'm saying there are systemic issues on their platform, and I'm trying to say for someone like me, who's trying to keep an open mind, I actually left the Twitter platform when Elon Musk took over, and I said, let me not be so biased, let me give the platform a shot, and I was not very satisfied. Every disadvantage in that platform, and every social media platform, I found there with none of its advantages. But if Twitter works for people...
though. You're conflating the new constraints of the system in that they have to
because he has
make
no employees.
It more difficult.
He fired them all because he thinks that he's running SpaceX.
I also think that that's a talking point. I know that he fired a lot of the employees, and that was important. If you've ever seen those reels or TikToks where
the revenue numbers were awful.
A day in the life of a Twitter employee, and they show up at 10 a.m. They have 2 meetings. They eat paid for lunch. That's gourmet.
Revenue problems.
You have to get rid of this mindset. Sure. But you're conflating your
They
content.
have no PR
your
department.
Content.
They have no PR department. So you can't even contact them for comment.
Elon Musk is their PR department. He has 140 million followers. No, but that's not a problem because the messaging is actually concise. You're conflating that your subject matter and your affiliational leadings is what's leading to your blockage. But then you're also acknowledging that, no, it's just systematic. It's that they want to get this fee month to month. So, I mean, really,
I say it's systematic. I say it's systematic because a moderate person like me, either right, left, or center, whatever you want to call them, can't go on the platform without spending 2 months shouting into a virtually empty room until an unattended automatic process decides when you're human. So I will say is that there are many vacant positions at Twitter that are very important that other companies do. There are probably a couple hundred auditors that work full-time at Facebook and on their platforms that do occasionally review these appeal systems. No such things exist at Twitter. Again, this is part of, they're looking at my balance sheet. How do I get back into the black? Twitter was hemorrhaging money. There's no disagreement in that he had to do something to right the ship of the company. My point is the unintended consequences. Is he really bringing more moderate voices to the platform? Couldn't a bot farm just pay $8 and then, instantly be easily verified? The verification process is very easy to bypass on there. So that would be my counter.
No question, but I think the issue or the methodology or the thinking is that, you don't have a bot farm with 50,000 bots that are all paying $8 because that becomes insurmountable. So that's what's being thwarted. And there are accusations on Twitter. And I don't know if I don't spend as much time on the other platforms, so maybe you would be aware. Can I go online and buy, a bot boost on Instagram? And you might be able to because of those same constraints don't exist. You have to. Yeah. And if you scroll through a lot of the comments at the bottom of an Instagram post, click my link for juicy snapshots or click my link to get saved by Jesus. Totally. It does exist at there as well. So, I think we're talking anecdotal.
For sure, but I will say, and I know this will tickle the fancy of both of our audiences, that $8 is not as a high bar as we think it is, because I've seen the talk of a Media Matters disinformation campaign, and then I can also see like Turning Point USA, like how much money they spend on influencing media. So again, I don't think $8 is that huge of an obstacle per account, and it only takes 1 or 2 accounts to really derail an entire conversation. So actually, I do want to take this opportunity to kind of frame everything that I do want to talk about moving forward. If we could play the Ron Swanson clip from Parks and Recreation right now.
Who broke it? I'm not mad. I just want to know.
I did. I broke it.
No, you didn't. Tom?
Don't look at me. Look at Ben.
What? I didn't break it.
Huh, that's weird. How'd you even know it was broken?
Because it's sitting right in front of us and it's broken.
Suspicious.
No, it's not.
If it matters, probably not, but April was the last one to use
Liar,
it.
I don't even drink that crap.
Oh, really? Then what were you doing by the coffee cart earlier?
I used the wooden stirrers to push back my cuticles. Everyone knows that,
Okay,
Jerry.
Okay, let's not fight. I broke it. Let me pay for it, Ron.
No. Who broke it?
Ron.
Don has been awfully quiet.
Really?
Yeah, really.
I broke it. It burned my hand, so I punched it. I predict 10 minutes from now, they'll be at each other's throats with war paint on their faces and a pig head on a stick. Good. It was getting a little chummy around here.
If at any point, you think that you're on the right side of a topic, if you think that you know exactly what you're talking about, you're one of the people in the room arguing. If you don't realize that, then it proves my point even more. How many times do we talk about all of these economic issues that clearly affect a majority of Americans, but it is so easy to chuck an incendiary issue. You can say one comment in any one section on any social media, and it immediately derails into a diatribe, and no one talks about, hey, what's this empirical data about since 1970 when Nixon outsourced our manufacturing to China, that all of a sudden we have this eroding middle class and that there is no manufacturing left here anymore, right? Like, those are the things that we distract from. So if we ever want to get to the point of dealing with China and creating jobs, etc., it doesn't start with talking about incendiary social issues that most people can find some common agreement, or at very least could just say, can we just tolerate each other and leave each other alone? That's kind of my thesis on life right now.
I like that. And I view that from a slightly different lens. In fact, it reminds me of what we talked about last week, where I believe that our intelligence communities and our deep state, for lack of a better characterization, is the one that's fomenting this kind of disagreement and this discourse of distracting from... Because I would say the goal is ever-growing bureaucracy, which is what our governments... that's what it's actually established to do now, is get ever-growing and bigger. Whereas you might, again, I don't want to characterize it, but it's more of a foreign threat that you're kind of encapsulating, right? I would imagine.
It's both, because I like the Sam Harris quote that I'm definitely going to butcher, but I'm going to try to paraphrase it, is that we've created these tools that we've lost control of, right? Like, no one can deny the power and benefits of internet and the many different types of IT technology communication, right? But then we also talk about how we can't even have a conversation anymore. Like, our media that we're making right now is very unique, because opposing opinions don't sit down and just have a conversation anymore. Like, it is such a rarity in these days, so.
Well, you have like breaking points, right? And you have, I think, Daily Wire hosts maybe this two-sided thing, or actually Vice maybe did it.
Which is times on YouTube. Which is amazing, but when you look at the traction that gets and viewership and engagement, it's just nowhere near the vitriolic one-sided media, right?
Yeah.
So
no, I get it.
I do want to make one point, because I've been deliberately trying to put myself in right of center, conservative spaces, or just spaces that I don't identify with, right?
Admirable.
So I went into the conservative subreddit, and I've been there for a little while, and they have a very, very strict policy about how if you're not a flared user and verified conservative, you can't comment in there. And understandably, I've watched the sub get brigaded many, many times. But I made a joke in there about the Matt Gaetz controversy, and there was a photo of him pictured with Roger Stone and I believe his name was Joel. Joel Green.
Joel Greenberg. It's here on the screen.
Perfect, right? So now, I'm not going to ascribe what happened there that day. I'm not going to go off into the deep end about who said what and then ascribe some kind of theory about how that explains the problems that are going on in the world. I made a joke that when Caesar was accused of his wife sleeping around, he divorced his wife and said famously, Caesar's wife should be above suspicion. So I made this joke, it flew right over their heads, and that I completely got banned from that. I've never been able to view anything on that sub ever again.
So I don't get it. What does that have to do with Roger Stone and Matt Gaetz?
It has nothing to do with it, but it has to do with this idea that there's this liberally biased media, that it's the liberals that have their echo chambers, and it's so problematic over there, is that the other side is exactly the same. So my point is, our discourse system is broken. We can't fucking talk to each other anymore, and it's becoming very problematic. We can't address the issues. So like the whole joke in that Ron Swanson skit was like, the coffee machine burned my hand, so I broke it. It's like when politicians are like, yeah, I don't like how the way this law works anymore, or some foreign state actors like, yeah, I don't like the way that thing works anymore. So like, let's just instill chaos, and then we erode at the faith of our very useful institutions, but they are rampant with corruption. So we want to get rid of these useful tools to us that help us combat domestic and foreign threats, right? Like, there's no there's no complaint that there's a ton of incumbency in our bureaucracy. So people aren't there on merit alone. They're simply there because they've been there for so long, right? That's not how innovation works.
Absolutely. I just put out a video yesterday about term limits and just saying how, end vote on term limits. You guys promised us this over a year ago. Matt Gaetz, in fact, was the one who said it.
Oh.
You know, that's one of the first votes we're going to have, and everybody's responding. You're an idiot, Elevator Charles. You have no idea. They're going to vote themselves out of their own jobs. You know, they're the ones that promised it to us. They're the ones. In fact, these people are young. They've got many years. You know, I called out Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, James Comer. All these people, they don't have plenty of time to be in Congress still. They're not voting themselves out of jobs. So I just want to point out on this image that you shared, just for my loyal friends and followers here, look at this. I'm not following Roger Stone. Just going to put it out there. I didn't know I wasn't, but you know what? I will.
I want to clear the air. Matt Gaetz is not being charged on any of those allegations. All the charges are dropped. So this is what I say.
There's lawfare
is that
in this country. It's disgusting what goes on.
Media is biased. It's not liberally biased, because I can go on every single MSM outlet, and there's an article on February 15th when the official information came out that the charges were being dropped from him. They all report it in extremely timely fashion. Is anybody who's going to the left of center, MSM site ever going to search for that article? No. If they read that article, are they going to ever believe it? No. This is the problem. Is we all we go to Google and we type in what is the answer to my heavily loaded question, and that satisfies.
I'm going to press you
evidence.
on it. So the other side of that, what I would argue is if you go to Google right now and you type in Matt Gaetz predator, you're going to get 100 articles that say he is, and he's under ethics investigations. Nobody's going to get the result from the other side of that.
He's still under ethics investigation, but there is there is the problem of, like we said the other time, but it's
ethics investigation for campaign finance, not for chatting up little girls. That's a little bit of a different freaking ballpark here.
And we're wasting time, at least in my opinion, with an investigation of Hunter Biden, who, now that we know that the primary evidence of corruption has fallen apart, that the claim is that the president's son has had sex with people that he shouldn't have.
Well, okay, again, little girls. It's a very different distinction between prostitutes and crack, again,
and this
illegal
is why
crimes,
I would say,
rather than seducing women in real life.
And that's not the president, though. I didn't remember Hunter Biden being the president.
Hunter Biden is enabled by his family. He's gotten these opportunities and these forward-thinking, he's only had doors open for him because of his last name. That's not the case in the Trump family. I'm not going to hear it.
No, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Let's just say I agree with everything you just said.
Okay.
Carter, when he takes presidency, gets rid of his family peanut farm as to ensure that there is no conflicts of interest or even perceptions thereof.
I'd ask him for more specification. What did he do with it? Give it to his wife, his uncle?
No, he sold it. It's no longer his. He didn't do what Trump did, which is, I know where you're leading to. Is Trump left his hotel, which is adjacent to the White House, run by his sons, that he sees every single day. And if you want to talk about children having undue influence in the process, we can talk about Jared Kushner and his daughter, Ivanka Trump.
Okay, fine. And again, they got $2 billion from the Saudis, but there's an investment fund. Let's look at we looked at Strive last time with.
But this is my point.
The investment fund is probably went up in money.
Do you see what's happening right now? These were once common sense agreements that no one would ever do those things as a matter of precedent, and now it's normal, and we're suiting up right now. Do you see how we're now not talking about term limits anymore?
So hold on, the president's family is banned from international business. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Because
when the business is held in trust, that was just his father's, and they meet on an every single day basis. There's no way they don't.
You're saying
talk about
Kushner and Trump meet on an everyday basis. I'm pretty sure that they pulled themselves out of politics. I'm
saying that the Trump sons, who spend millions of dollars of Secret Service protection taxpayer money to conduct business, that was the first time that this has happened in office. That's bonkers, because I just want to say, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Let's say Trump is completely innocent, the family's innocent. Aren't you concerned about some ultra liberal? Let's just say George Soros somehow wins the presidency tomorrow, and he does all those things. You wouldn't find that concerning in the slightest bit?
I mean, I suppose I would, but we live in a capitalist country. You have to allow capitalism. So while maybe we can't
we
fault
don't.
but
We
Hunter
make-
for going and sitting on boards. He was on 12 boards. Okay, we're not talking about the 11 companies that were maybe above board here, and he had reason to weigh in on their affairs.
Right.
What
We're talking about the
is
one board that was
Ukrainian
hinging
company.
on testimony that is kind of falling apart right now. That's why it's been quiet for 2
Well,
weeks.
it's hinging
right?
on public
That-
comments made by Biden himself,
Hold on.
saying he's going to fire
His-
Victor Shokin.
His trial was supposed to be not public, and now all of a sudden it is. I just want to.
It was supposed to be
us,
public. He was supposed to publicly testify, and he had a press conference outside Capitol Hill instead of going in.
He had a press conference outside because the issue was that it wasn't going to be televised. That is because it was not going to be public. That's what he says on air. He says, "I will go."
I didn't
The reason
hear
why the reason why he didn't honor a subpoena, which I do think is unbecoming. Everyone should honor
That's
a
what I heard,
congressional
yeah.
subpoena. It was because it wasn't public, but now it is. And again, Ron Swanson's off in the side here, breaking our coffee machine, having us kind of argue over these nonsense here. But again, how does this affect your real wages? How is this addressing inflationary pressures that we're all feeling, right? Like,
Fine. So, but we'll cap it here, but I'm going to ask you to steelman your argument. So, okay, fine. Who is the Ron Swanson, and what is their motive then in blowing up the Biden family in this way for 4 years now?
Republicans. It's any conservative media outlet. You have Turning Point USA that has Project 2025. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's to replace every employee in the executive branch with a conservative person. And again, how do you verify that? And again, is this not escalatory? If we still live in a democratic republic and we're allowed to have election the following year after such a thing, what if Democrats take office? What if they have Project 2029 and they do the same exact thing? We're spiraling out of fucking control, man. That's my point here.
Yeah, hyper-partisanship. Listen, we definitely agree on that. I
It's
do
why
feel
term
though
limits.
that
It's why Matt Gaetz and all those others, they become the Mr. and Mrs. Smith that goes to Washington, and they just become corrupted by the process. It's my point that, like Sam Harris is saying, is like we've created these tools, but we've lost control of them. It ties back into the Citizens United, where it gives wealthier people more votes. You and I will never hit a federal election spending limit ever. Like I don't have a couple $100,000 laying around to vote
said
in only a
spend
handful
zero.
of campaigns. Yeah,
Zero
George
ever.
Soros and Citadel LLC have hundreds of millions of dollars potentially in their coffers if they wanted to unleash this on our politics, and they can just keep going to super PAC after super PAC after super PAC, voting in other states that they're not even in. It's insane, So I try to plead to our people to say, if you think that you're on the right side, you're just arguing about who broke the coffee machine.
that I like the characterization. Listen, I agree with you. And again, though, it sounds like you're maybe saying that it's coming from these individuals, or I don't want to mischaracterize and say that it's foreign. I mentioned that twice, and you haven't really said it back. So I don't want to maybe say that you think that.
No,
but-
and it's both, because all it takes is a single comment from a troll, a foreign state actor, or and again, if you have a low cost of living in these, poorly developing, countries that are enemies of America, why not take some fat, juicy, defense contract to write a few comments on a social media page and just sit back and watch it? I mean, it's Randy from South Park, not Randy. I'm sorry. The skank episode of South Park.
I don't know. Listen, but my point was going to be that I think it's maybe that the fact that this government is a self-propelling growth machine, like a corporation, frankly. Actually, I'm bringing up a clip right now. It's RFK Jr. running for president. Here, listen to him speak. It's about this exact same thing.
And I'll leave you with 3 thoughts. One is that any power that government takes from the people, it will never return voluntarily. Number 2 rule, every power that government takes, it will ultimately abuse to the maximum extent possible. And number 3, nobody ever complied their way out of totalitarianism. The only thing we can do is resist. Thank you all very much.
Okay, so my comment on this is he ends it by saying resist, resist. How important is resist? And who was the one that kept saying resist, resist? It was the media and the progressive left. But I actually think that RFK Jr. is a bit of an antithesis to that group. Oh, he's still talking. And in a way, he's saying... Okay, comedy break. Roger Stone, we talked about him before. Big Nixon tattoo on his back. Not many people know that.
And I will just make a comment as a characterization of Roger Stone choosing probably one of the most corrupt presidents who made the mistake of recording everything he ever said, saying the most heinous racist things. So
well, he worked for him. He was I forget what position he was, but he worked for him for many years.
And the irony is that while Nixon was a piece of shit and did such desanctimonious things to the office and set terrible precedents for corruption in the future, he would have never been impeached or come close to it had he just not tried to cover it up. And this is a big thing: is the cover-up is always worse than the crime, and this is why.
Well, I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
No, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. So this is why when you see the left or the right lying about something, this concerns me more. When I see people who commit obstruction of justice, it's not even that what they're being charged with, it's just the lengths that they're willing to go, what might not even be that major. Might not even be that major crime.
That's
so
the
what
Trump
if it
document
was?
Case. Right, the Trump document case versus the Biden document case.
I don't want to thinly veil it too much, but yeah, that's kind of my point.
No, but there's nuances when you compare the two, right? And
I think if you're in elected office, yeah, sure. I think if you're in elected office, there should really never be an opportunity where you're not fully cooperative with any investigation, even if you feel that it's partisan, because it's such a terrible precedent to set. I'm sorry. I just think that moving forward,
well,
if
that's
any
the general
can claim
precedent
immunity
is
and things like that. It's highly problematic.
I think that it's almost like a trap. When I look at these cases happening, we're talking about whether or not the president has immunity from declaring a murder, and it's ridiculous. It's a straw man, right?
We're losing control of the tools we created. This is my point. We're trying to use
the same way that Matt Gaetz is under an ethics investigation, and when you Google his name, right, that's what you find. You don't find that, oh, never mind, it's been dropped in this way or whatever. This is what's going on.
It's not the legal; it's the ethics of him just being associated with people. But yes, but this is the thing: is that partisanship exists everywhere. So it behooves us to not vote once every 4 years, right? This is why the primary elections are so important, your local elections, and to be honest, I think the whole primary system needs to be changed. It should happen all around the same time, if not on the same Tuesday, right? Just like everybody votes for the president. Why should some earlier states with much lower populations dictate the entire momentum of the rest of the primary? There's so many Republicans, there are a handful of Republicans I would have voted for handily over Biden. But I don't have an option in this race. So now I'm either forced to pick someone like RFK Jr. or pick Biden, and it's this Sophie's Choice kind of situation I feel like I'm in. If you'd put a handful of responsible Republicans on that actually believe in, small government and financial responsibility and things like that, fiscal responsibility, I'm sorry, I'm juggling on that word a little bit, but if they demonstrated some sense of responsibility, they'd have my vote. Every time Republicans come into office, the explosive government spending just keeps going on.
Yeah. I tweeted something this week. It's totally random, but it popped in my head because I went through this period and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's 54, this guy's 54, that guy's 54. I realized that. I'm pretty sure
age.
50 to 54, that might be the right age. I'm 30. I think I'm 31. I sometimes think I'm 32 or older than I am. I've always
millennial math, right? The year 2000 was only like 5 years ago.
When I was 17. But right? No, I think so it was actually I think it was Tucker Carlson. He was on the Lex Friedman podcast and he said something like how he's 54 and laughed that he doesn't know it all, but how he's actually good age. And I was like, 54? Who else do I know that's 54? And I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast the very same day. That guy's 54 as well. He mentions it, and so I go, who else is 54? I had to look it up.
So that's why
I'll give Elon Musk. He's 52. He's got a year or two more till he's going to hit greatness.
So this is why I want to dispel the myth of the liberally biased media. Joe Rogan gets a $250 million multi-year deal with Spotify, right? Everyone can freely go choose that, So I want to keep hammering this home that it's not the liberally biased media, it's the incredibly biased media that we're all kind of victims of that I keep referencing.
Okay, but the problem is Joe Rogan out there that, well, maybe that I'm going to disprove myself. I was going to say that CNN and MSNBC will tell you that Joe Rogan is totally conspiracy theory nut, and you can't listen. Don't listen to Joe Rogan for medical advice. Do you think anybody who listens to Joe Rogan is trying to listen to him for medical advice? No, we're listening to Andrew Huberman, his incredibly brilliant guests. Well,
if you take his Alpha Brain,
guess why I'm so fired up today, brother.
Alpha Brain. Brought to
No,
you by
I
this
did
episode
take
brought
some-
to you by Alpha Brain.
I took L-theanine before today's show because it offsets the caffeine and it's very good. It gets you sharp. But
So
truly.
I'm
So
not gonna
nobody's listening to him for news though. Nobody's listening to him to say, "Here, let me get my data points from this show." They get their ideas and then they go and investigate it because they're discerning. That's the person who listens to it.
I think there's a lot less discerning people than we think that are out there. 80% of action in society is driven by the 20% because they're the ambitious, clever enough people to do so. I think there's a lot of people that just like to rehash talking points. And again, I want to get to my actual point on Joe Rogan. The problem is, like, I've watched a Joe Rogan episode. I'm part of this, like, social experiment where I have an entirely different YouTube profile dedicated to alt-right, right-of-center media, if you will. And this is the problem. This is where I keep saying, like, the tools have gone off the rails. No one could deny how powerful and useful these algorithms are, either for making companies money by giving curated ads, and which are creepy at times, but it's like, hey, no, that's actually the exact thing that I want, right? Right. So it's this creepy element that they're watching us, but it's these algorithms then that are so useful that put some very heinous conspiratorial content around that Joe Rogan video that I see how easy it is to slip down a rabbit hole. You could ask some pointed questions about, oh yeah, that kind of is horseshit. I really want to know what's going on there. And then, and I'm not going to just straw man a bunch of things, but just some very, very,
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I would respond to that. So last night, literally, I was with my sister.
And it's like that on the left. Just to be clear.
Okay, so first let me say that my rebuttal to all this is that when you go and look at authoritative news sources, I mean, I don't think any good faith person could argue this data point, that there's 80% plus very left-leaning liberal in the authoritarian or authoritative news sphere, and then there's just 20% on the right. So when we look at Joe Rogan, right, I don't consider him even in that sphere. He's in a sphere of influence, but he's not in the news world. So when you are not 54, when you are 60 plus, that is, you only go to these sites. You only go to the TV and the newscasters to get these stories. So that's my counterpoint to what you were saying.
NBC is valued, and I'm just pulling a random number of Google being a hypocrite saying, what is the answer to my biased question? But I found the evaluation of NBC somewhere pegged at around $30 billion. Joe Rogan's getting $250 million for a very small team of people. Think about how many people have to work at NBC to make that $30 billion valuation. I'd say that Joe Rogan's keeping a large share of that pot by comparison. And again, it's just it really ties into this whole idea that it's not the problem is Joe Rogan. When I tune into MSM articles or media, I know I'm getting spin. That I go there with that purpose. I then look at like how they're spinning something, right? That helps me try to analyze an article. I know what they want me to believe, right? So that's what I do with right-leaning media. It's like, this is what they want me to believe. And then I have to take all of that in, perspective and kind of synthesize my own conclusion from that. I think that we're doomed because nobody has enough time to read all the angles of a story and play, fucking a private eye and figure it all out every single day of their life.
I mean, what I often say is that people who are engaged in discourse online, like especially Twitter, I think that's a little bit more of a political app, and actually probably Reddit is maybe a bit more as well. But yeah, those people are among like the top percentile of politically engaged people, at least among younger people, right? A lot of older people are maybe more into the news, as I kind of said before.
They're 10 years behind the curve. They're still on Facebook groups.
Yeah, well, so I put out a separate video, I guess a TikTok this week, and it was saying how I kind of dislike talking to other right-wing people about politics. Like, I like talking to you, Mike, because we get to kind of explore it. And when you'll say the perspective that maybe I'm not even exposed to, and I go, oh, wow, I didn't know that, or no, that's BS. That's why I don't believe it. But when I talk to people
it's all part of it. It's all part of the
But
experiment.
when I talk to people on the right, and this is why I think that we get a bad rap, is because they are constantly saying these things that they're based in what we want to believe is true, but they are missing the nuance to understanding why it's a problem or what the problem actually is. For example, talking about, and I'm going to just wave my hand and say, because I hope people watch this part of it, because a lot of people have followed me
out of context.
No, I want them to take me out of context. In fact, this is just like almost something I haven't said yet on publicly. So on my Twitter page, I've spent a lot of time, years, talking about election interference. And I have many posts about the movie 2000 Mules or about videos in Georgia about the counting process and suitcases or ballot boxes being moved around, however you want to classify them, right? And that's kind of my point, is I've put out a lot of information there that now would or could be considered misinformation. And when you have a conversation about election interference, here I am again saying we wouldn't talk about it on YouTube, and it's all I'll talk about. And so I'm not one that says that the election was accurate, right?
Yeah.
But I have the reasons to back that up. And I don't say because of the movie 2000 Mules anymore. I think that if you go around saying that ballot boxes are being stuffed, okay, I have a great example of that, and I can post the video of someone doing it in Bridgeport. Here it is.
Thank you. I do want to get to that, actually.
But on the other case, right, when you say, hey, here's the videos from 2000 Mules, when you look into that, wait a minute, why did Catherine and Greg, the two people who made it at True the Vote, why did they never submit their evidence? Why did they never submit their data points? Why were they refusing subpoenas and X, Y, and Z and saying they don't even have access to that? So it creates a lot of questions, but there are legitimate examples. So if I'm having a debate with someone like you, who's very well versed on debunking those claims, and then I start saying like, hey, there was a water main leak in Fulton County. This is what, that's why people left. It happened at 10 p.m. Well, okay, there was a water main leak. It did create confusion. I do believe that there were public officials that said leave the counting facility to witnesses or poll watchers, but it wasn't that there was no leak. And if you go and say, that was all made up, there was no leak, that was an excuse to stop the counting, well, all of a sudden, now your legitimate, or my legitimate points have been totally discredited. So it's very important to have the full comprehensive understanding.
This is why I'm trying to frame it. What happened in Bridgeport, Connecticut, as a left-of-center Democrat, is extremely shady, and from the optics, it looks like it was swept under the rug. I want to live in a democratic republic where neither side tolerates that shit. That's why I am so terrified about a Project 2025, because I know liberals. We're nominating Biden as our primary through our primary process because we're on our team. We've suited up for it, and we see the opposition not as the loyal opposition, but the enemy. They're our adversaries. So we have to do these corrupt things. We have to cover up small crimes that are really not that big of a deal, where the cover-up is worse than the crime itself. We have to do all those things because if Democrats don't win, if Republicans don't win in 2024, our country is destroyed. When I went to the early voting process here in Florida to, doofily vote for my Democratic candidates that I approved
Good thing you did it
here.
early. I wish you did it remotely too, man.
Exactly. I wish I mailed it in entirely, actually. And
right.
So I have an issue because it is a closed primary process in the state, and I would have loved to just cast my vote for a moderate Republican without being, claimed to be a dissident trying to manipulate party politics. But
thank you for clarifying that.
But really, if only 29 days before the election is the minimum, I have to register 29 days before the primary to be eligible. Can't I just fucking, think about a month before time? I know I'm a Democrat and I want to, see discord into the primary process. Couldn't 29 days before I just switch? And then switch right thereafter. I
mean, that's what I got so much hate in New Hampshire. Because I came out and it's controversial. I said Nikki Haley cheated. No, it's not cheating. It's working within the rules. I get that, but that is exactly the issue. The Democrats came out and said, I'm not going to support Nikki Haley in the general. I don't want to vote for her. I don't want her to be the president. I'm going to vote for Joe Biden.
I
changed my party affiliation and voted for Nikki Haley. Get out of here. Go scram.
I think that a problem gets solved with a primary, like Super Tuesday, much like we have our election where kind of everything happens at the same time. It doesn't matter, right? Like what happened where else. Like everyone votes at the same time, and your vote is influenced just by what you were thinking the day you went into the ballot box. Every day after every primary, the calculus changes. These campaigns readjust their strategies, spend money here, there, start a rally over there, etc. So it's never ever about the issues because we're just keep supporting this process that no longer filters for pragmatic leaders who get things done. They filter for people who can get reelected. This is why people don't go there and address term limits and real wages and actual inflationary pressures and stuff like that. That's why.
Do you recall if Trump ran opposed or unopposed in 2020? I don't even remember if there were other Republican challengers.
Oh, no, there definitely were. Absolutely. That was the year of the, 17 Republican candidates, right? Yeah, no, there was a handful.
No. That had to have been 2016.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. It was 2016. Yeah.
Because in his midterm, I'm not sure. I'm just asking to say if it's more common that, I guess it is common, right? But I don't know if it's so extreme as to what's going on now in the Democratic Party where, they basically outright prevent other candidates from running, where, they kind of did it to Bernie saying, you're going to have to take a back seat here.
Bernie absolutely got shafted by the super delegate process, essentially.
Right,
Yeah,
but I'm saying there wasn't a Ted Cruz or something who was trying to wave a alarm and say,
Absolutely.
hey, they're not letting me run. I just don't think that happened then.
It's why...
But it is happening now.
If everyone ever wonders why I am left of center, it's for reasons like that. And this is why I'm pleading with my conservative colleagues that are out there in America, give me some common sense candidates to vote on. I want to vote for moderate right of center policies because I recognize the importance of balance. I need to challenge my party. Everything that I could say about the Republican Party and its far right elements, I could say about the far left elements. We are engaging in very anti-capitalist behavior, and where I think we need to reform our capitalism to get it to start working for the people again, we run into social issues, or we can't even agree to the set of the facts. So to tie into the fact that people go to Washington not because they're good pragmatic leaders, it's simply because they're good at getting reelected. Look at what Mike Johnson has yielded for the Republican Party since he's been House, right? It's been chaos. It's because, and I do want to interject this clip here, and before anyone excoriates me because it's from CNN, it's Mike Johnson's words from his mouth. So you take that for what it is.
Many historians, those who are objective, would look back and recognize and give some credit to the fall of Rome, to not only the deprivation of the society and the loss of morals, but also to the rampant, homosexual behavior that was condoned by the society.
So we did reach out to Johnson's office. We asked about...
I don't want to hear CNN's commentary. It's the reason why I don't watch Ben Shapiro and Destiny debate, because I tune out after 10 minutes because I know everyone's just going to repeat the talking points that are so incredibly predictable. It's why I love Jon Stewart, because he's unpredictable, because he calls everyone's fucking bullshit out, right? That's why I tune into stuff like that.
So what is Mike Johnson even talking about there? The Roman Empire had rampant homosexuality?
And again, before I get strawmanned into saying I'm attacking, traditional values, you can believe whatever you want. That's what's so amazing about this country. I just want to get to a point where our beliefs don't interfere with our ability to either discourse or, in this particular reason, legislate. We're not filtering for good leaders anymore. It is very clear that Mike Johnson hasn't read anything about Roman fucking history, because I didn't see rampant homosexuality as a reason for the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. This is 4 books that I've read in 2 years, and it's only 4 of the books that I've read about it. I have been a lifelong fan of, the Roman, ancient Rome, the Republic, and then following into the history. If rampant homosexuality is the cause of the downfall of the Roman Empire, we need to start having as much gay sex as possible, because that's going to buy us another 1,750 years of our Republic. The Roman Empire stood from 500 BC to, roughly 12 to 1300 AD, depending on when you put that time on. So what the beauty of our system, of the American Democratic Republic, is it was modeled after the Roman Republic and its flaws, right? So that's why we come up with this bicameral legislature process, right? We have a House and a Senate, and one is more divided towards representing population, and one is more tried to grant an even vote just based on the number of territories. We have a system of checks and balances where there's an executive power. All of these are precedents that we learned from the failures of the Roman Empire. We find ourselves in an issue today, much like the Crossing of the Rubicon book that I said I passed. I'm trying to be very reasonable and rational, but I always come off as crazy to certain people because everyone suits up for their team and they hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
January 6th has never occurred in our history of a 250-plus year standing democracy, the oldest one in the world. I don't want liberals next election, if Donald Trump does win, to do that. That's the shit that terrifies me, is that regardless of whose fault it is, we're on this spiral that's completely out of control. So,
well, I would be remiss if I didn't just point out that, the Summer of Love, the George Floyd riots, all of that was kind of a left-leaning response or a knee-jerk to right-wing politics in a way.
Absolutely. And but I characterize it as that's social unrest, and this is unrest in governance. This is like a simple transfer of power. This is a not engaging the systems and people and tools that you have in place to kind of restore order on there.
Well, same feeling that you felt on Twitter, we'll bring it right home. Those people, literally, that were there on January 6th, and again, I'm the first on the right to say violence is bad. I condemn violence of any sort, any kind. I don't support foreign war. I don't support domestic war. I don't support punching a cop. I don't support punching a liberal. I don't support even punching a Nazi, quite frankly. So to see the violence, terrible, right? With that said, all of these folks were there because they were experiencing the exact same censorship regime that you were up against and left Twitter because of it. They were booted. They were booted from the Donald on Reddit. They weren't allowed to have an echo chamber.
And any legitimacy of their criticisms are lost because of those actions on those days. This is part of this spiral that I'm talking about out of control. Is it's so easy to categorize the left and right because there are just so many examples of them behaving terribly. And rather than us calling out each, we have to protect them because they're on our team. And if, God forbid, George Santos, loses a seat, it's terrible for the Republicans. But we have to keep him in there, even if he's a lying piece of shit.
Now we have Tom Suozzi, a lying piece of shit. And frankly, I wouldn't have wanted Mozzie Phillips, I don't know her name.
I accept almost all of the criticisms of Biden from the right. I just don't understand how Trump is the answer to someone who's only 2 years younger, who says just as crazy shit, in my opinion, and the many of people on my side of the aisle and stuff like that. I just want to know, how is that the answer? And then that's what to me screams as no, we're in this spiral where we're out of control, where both parties can't just say this is ridiculous. What the hell is going on here?
So let's talk about it then, my theory, on a more ideological level rather than maybe on a more granular policy level, right? Because I do think that Trump is... I'm going to claim that Trump is maybe more centrist than a DeSantis character.
Okay.
More so than... He's more centrist than far right as opposed to the far left of the progressive wing. But more so my point is that I think Trump is being seen as this anti-establishment figure just on a more broad scale. He's a nationalist or populist.
I understand.
On the other side though, the Democrats are almost on a globalist scale. We're on this socialist welfare state expansionism, and that's what's resonating. So it's not that Trump is the most politically savvy guy, it's that Trump is able to characterize the populist message that we've come away from, and that is the knee-jerk reaction to the globalist.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's so important. And here's one last thing I'll say. When you look at a guy like Trump, there's no question that Trump's rife with flaws. The difference, though, and this was something that was talked about between some psychologist I was listening to on Rogan years ago, was why can't Trump just be more mild-mannered? If he was more mild-mannered like Pence, then he would be the greatest president ever.
He would have never got elected.
He wouldn't be Trump. He wouldn't be a billionaire. He wouldn't be the real estate mogul or the tycoon that he is. He wouldn't have done that. So it's part of who he is. You need to have that. Every human has their character flaws that makes them who they are. So that's why it's so interesting to say, is he the best choice? No, because of X, Y, and Z. Yes, but A, B, and C are so much more net beneficial to the country than mean tweets, right? To characterize it loosely. That's that difference.
So for me, I tie a lot of our real wage erosion to anti-unionization efforts and outsourcing of jobs. This all starts in the 70s. This starts mainly with Republicans, but Democrats also participate in this. It turns out globalism is actually very, very profitable. I am very pro-free trade. Let's talk about the Trump tariffs, because this is kind of
So am I. I'm not talking about it on an economic level. We have to separate that from the political level.
Well, if we want these economic objectives achieved, we have to put forth candidates who can get things done. Donald Trump had control of the Republican legislature and was the sitting president, and they couldn't repeal Obamacare because it is just like when Matt Gaetz and all those others talk about term limits, they're just saying it to get elected. They're just saying it to make you argue about who broke the fucking coffee machine. It gets you to vote for them. Democrats do this too. So again, before you say, "Oh, well, the Democrats do it," like, this is not about whataboutism. I want to get to a point where we can all recognize the bullshit on all these sides so we can move forward. I'm terrified because neither Biden nor Trump and concerns with RFK Jr. too is they don't lead to a path of unity. And I do think that's the fault of the populace, right? Like, we can't unify ourselves. We can't look past differences and try to find that common ground. I worry about all the things that RFK Jr. talks about in that speech, dampening power. It's all about this dampening of power. That's what makes our Western liberal experiment worth fighting for, and it's worth like combating authoritarianism across the world and prevent it from spreading. Is it because it gives you that choice of being able to live your life how you want better than any other system in the world? But more importantly, it dampens the levers of power and someone's ability to use them. With Biden or Trump, we're not heading in a direction where that power is dampened. Our political systems are so paralyzed that everything has to be done by executive action now, which further concentrates the power in the executive office. We've been going since, I don't know, probably George Sr., right, with the Gulf War. It's been a very wide expansion of those powers. You could tie it back to the Gulf of Tonkin resolution that gave the president emergency wartime powers that most scholars agree are just so unconstitutional, but no one wants to challenge it because of how important it is for the president to be able to lead our military around the world in these unnecessary wars.
Yeah, can't be delayed by that stuff. I agree. Well, we talked about it on, actually, I think it was our first episode, about how you are trading these assets in a way as your bargaining chips when you talk about these. I think omnibus. I don't know if that refers to a specific bill or the theory of encapsulating all.
No, I think omnibus is like a large package bill.
Good. So I'm not talking about some old bill, but yeah. Omnibus. I mean, the fact that we're going down this route where we have all of these omnibus bill packages, it's creating that issue because you can't. Like, for example, on the Krasensteins, who are the biggest left-wing Twitter people there, that they always share the left-wing perspective and say, Republicans should lighten up on this and agree. And listen, I go back and forth with them, and they respond to me often. I think they know me by now. But the truth is that
that fucking Cooper again.
Well, they call me Elevator.
That goddamn Elevator Charles again.
So they said the other day, one of them said the other day, do you support the border bill if it's separate from the Ukraine and Israel funding? And I responded, no, I still don't support it. We were, and okay, someone's going to argue that Republicans came up with the bill. Okay, fine. It was one Republican senator who worked alongside a team of Democrats. But the truth is, the border bill includes lots of great things that we need: more funding, building more barriers, hiring more people, more technology. Great. I love all of that stuff. It's completely necessary. But guess what? That bill also includes another segment that says we can allow legally 4,999 encounters a day. We don't have to shut it down until 5. And the response is, no, they're going to do it before that. Don't worry. It's just a safe measure. Well, then put that in writing. Yet again, you're now, okay, remove Ukraine. You're holding us up because of Ukraine. Yeah. If you just pull out the border, now you're holding us up because of the figures that are in the bill. So if you are serious about hiring more agents, then let's vote on literally just hiring more agents. If you are serious about constructing more barriers, let's vote on just constructing more barriers. Enough of the tying it all together, because this is what's getting to be a problem. That's what we were promised this by Matt Gaetz under Kevin McCarthy, and then Kevin McCarthy leaves, and all of the deals get thrown to hell because Mike Johnson isn't held to them. But then nothing happens.
Congress functions on dysfunction. The worst thing that ever happened in 2024 and in 2023 for Republican contributions to their campaigns was to actually get Roe v. Wade overturned. Nothing gets you to donate to a campaign or vote for somebody based on such a hot button issue, and now they've completely given it to the left. It is such a successful campaign issue. It's why you haven't seen a red wave that was predicted. All of these social button issues are really good at getting people to turn out for things that don't always matter, right? Yeah. Here we are talking about that and not passing legislation. We have not had comprehensive immigration reform since it's 2012 when DACA executive action was passed. The only time before that was 2005 Real ID program. Then we go back into the 90s where they attempted it and failed. And we've been working on, I think, a 1964 immigration bill with amendments. That is the basis for our immigration policy. We can't let
The issue with
can't let-
claiming asylum is from the 80s.
We can't let perfect be the enemy of good. I agree that these need to not be omnibus bus bills, because then we could just vote on an imperfect bill. But if your belief is incremental reform and getting there, this is the first step. You're not going to get there overnight with the perfect bill, and both
I'm
parties.
a little hard on it.
Both parties have to get
I don't know if I
elected.
agree with incremental on that. I mean, this has been, like we were saying, why would we agree to an
We-
incremental settlement
well then we get dysfunction in Washington where not a single piece of legislation on immigration reform is passed since amendments in the 80s, or 64 is when the first fucking bill came into power, is because we're so concentrated on the perfect bill instead of good. And now it feels like we can't work incrementally anymore because we've been doing this for 50 years. Wages have been stagnating for 50 years. Wealth inequality is growing for 50 years. That's why you feel all these inflationary pressures, and the top half doesn't. They've insulated themselves. And I want to get into this. This is where I thought we could find some common ground, right? The SAG-AFTRA strikes. There's been 2 of them that have been happening in recent history. The one that just occurred I think it started in November of last year, and then the one happened in the early 2004. Don't peg me to that number, but early 2000s, and that was the SAG writer strike. Both of them happened to last just about. The first one was 99 days, and the next one was 118 days. And those are important numbers, right? So
because they know it takes about 3.5 months to get what they want.
The first, exactly. No, not the unions, but they do know, because the industry executives were quoted as saying they're just going to stall these strikes until they don't have the economic ability to maintain those strikes anymore. Every single writer and actor on the strike is out of work for 3 months. You and I can't take off of work for unpaid for 3 months, right? But they made that sacrifice. So now Bob Iger is then complaining about the challenges that this puts on his industries to try to negotiate like that. Poor fucking Bob Iger talking about the challenges of his industry because he's creatively bankrupt, remaking the same fucking films that nobody asked for and making changes that nobody wanted anymore. While he makes $27 million in his compensation package is anywhere between 500x to 1,240 times that of his employees at his own company.
Yeah.
They want you to be anti-union because it's making it more expensive for you at the store, so Bob Iger can make $27 million to do renovations on his 3rd fucking house yacht that he's working on.
Yeah, well, it's like a hunger strike, right? It's like, okay, you're going to make yourself hungry, go for it. How long can you last?
They only gave in on the second strike because it lasted for 118 days, proving that they were willing to hold out longer than the first 99 days. These people, they make billions of dollars. They know the math. They have very smart people that are saying they could hold out as long as 99 days. Let's see if they can't hold out as long as that. But then they realized these people were willing to commit. So for every person, and it's not, if this video feels like I'm talking about you to our audience, it's because I talk to lots of people. Your opinion is shared with lots of people as well. So again, it's not targeted, but I sense a general apathy about just how we can't fix things. And I will go on and on about how the deck is the deck is stacked against us. We have so many things working against us. But SAG-AFTRA proved that with 3 months of picketing, they can get things done. It is one of the most comprehensive reforms to that industry ever. It guaranteed things like reasonable breaks, wage increases, combating AI, all these really powerful things that no one said they'd ever be able to do. So I try to say is voting does matter. Activity, even on the smallest local level, is very important because it sets cultural trends that I'm not willing to do or to cover up my side's flaws in some Machiavellian theory that the ends justify the means, right? We all hold bullshit to account. That's how we get there.
Well, but, I mean, listen, me personally, I work in a business that has a very powerful union, the Elevator
likewise,
World. Hopefully I don't offend anybody. Truth be told, I'm not in the union, but I'm not so bought into the idea of unions. I know that they offer a lot of benefits and job security and better conditions. I get all of those benefits, but in capitalism, it does seem like there's a little bit of gatekeeping where, your pricing is getting gouged by these corporations because the labor rate is so high for these workers. And again, I understand the other point. It's just that there's these unintended consequences of, you make a certain group of people's lives better or they're working easier, but you don't, it should be more generalized, right? And now there's plenty of people that could do that work, but they're not permitted to do that work because of these regulations. It is strange.
So unions raise the wages of the whole industry for even non-union members.
That's fair. I see that.
When you apply for a job anywhere in the world, the USA specifically, your pay is pegged based on market rate value for that kind of job, that work, right? How do you raise that? Well, if there are lots of unions out there that demand high wages, as we've seen the success of the UPS strikes, no one should ever admonish those drivers for making $120,000 years. We need more middle-class Americans making at least that so they can go out and buy goods from our businesses, right? UPS
we both
is
live in
making
major
plenty of money.
cities. We live in major cities, came from the Northeast. You need that amount of money. You cannot live without
is
that.
UPS or any of these other corporations that have fought, is Starbucks hurting because of all these anti-unionization efforts? No, they're making money hand over fist. They're still making these multi-million-dollar compensation packages, and they want to blame it on fucking minimum wage workers who are demanding to be given reasonable breaks and a livable wage so they can actually have work full-time but not still somehow be below the federal poverty line, requiring to get these entitlement programs, which then embed you into a cycle of only voting for Democrats because you have Republicans who challenge this system that's trapping you there, but it's your only lifeline out. And that's why we have a completely dysfunctional system of why it's everybody's fault, but nobody wants to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, what I would say is that the unions have now grown to become so bureaucratic.
Totally can be corrupt. Absolutely.
Yeah, that leads
just
to
like
much of the
every
issues where,
corporation that has too much power.
I guess you need the corruption to fight the corruption in a way. I don't know.
That
we
would
should
be
talk
my
to Stalin
argument.
about that because he might disagree.
I'm gonna go full Marxist on you. It's like with all these companies that need to make a 30 to 40% margin, which is the respectable margin any business should barely achieve. Depending on high revenue, etc. You can go lower, but I don't want to get into the financial weeds. But like if every healthcare insurance company needs to make 30-40% on top of everything, that's why there's 40% of your bill. That's where your healthcare costs come from. It's just simply paying your insurance company to report record profits year over year, right? Yeah. And yet raise the prices every year. General Mills will go on their quarterly calls and say, this has been a fucking stellar year. Yeah, because you doubled the prices of goods, because that's what inflation does. It benefits commodity companies. When you need more dollars to buy something, there's all of a sudden spending $9-10 on a box of cereal. But then they admit on that same quarterly call that their inputs haven't gotten that much more expensive, but yet they still doubled their prices and brag about it.
I hope that the General Mills executive leadership team is listening right now, because
they absolutely are.
I have their idea. I don't know why they haven't done this. The same way that when you could buy a liquor bottle, but it comes in a gift box and it has 2 little glasses with it. Yeah. It costs $1 a glass. Guess what? They just made $30 because of the glass that was in there. Yep. They need to start giving me a little plastic spoon and a little plastic branded bowl that says Fruity Pebbles on it. And they could charge me $30. I'll buy it. I will.
Absolutely. That's capitalism in action, baby.
Why won't they do that? I don't know. They need to. Here I am. Yeah. So, no, I get it. I listen. Those capitalist pigs at General Mills, they can run with my idea. That's for them to decide. I know that at the companies or the jobs that I've had, building that little incremental profit boost is what you need. But hey, we have this capitalist system. You have to allow it. We've talked in the past about Citizens United and the right to spend your money how you see fit, right? So I think that what needs to happen is, kind of the more oversight, but the price gouging is something that we talked about a little bit, needs to be avoided. But all of that is to lead to this greater sense of regulation, right? And eventually with this spread of government and regulation, now everyone is an employee of the state, and we've led to exactly that which we seek to destroy. So I just believe that this bureaucracy is synonymous, in my view, or from where I sit, with authoritarianism, because the democracy is eroded in the process of bureaucracy because it's undermining it. So that's maybe the more ideological stance on things. But hey, I think we touched on a lot of good stuff today. I am going to implore you, please come back on Twitter. I'm going to help you as best I can. I'm on Instagram. You're not going to get me on Reddit. You're not going to get me on Reddit. I've left Reddit. I'm never asking anybody to either not use Twitter or take my experiences as, again, systematic silencing of my voice. I'm just trying to remind people that
if you think the other side has these flaws, you must realize that you're projecting a lot of your own stuff onto other people, and or you need to kind of look in your own echo chamber. If you don't think you're in an echo chamber, you're in an echo chamber. That's just the easiest way I could say it, man.
Okay, well, by that argument, this is an echo chamber here.
Absolutely. Hello?
That's right. It's a feedback loop. No, I think we do a good job, Mike. Listen, we always do. I'm grateful for your time here. I think we've hinted a few times at things that we wanted to touch on the following week, and I don't know that we ever come back to it. So
we never will.
I was about to hint on something. Nope. I'm going to leave them in the shadows this time. We're going to just ask you to come back. Please, if you guys like this, follow us, share, subscribe, like, comment. Send this to your grandma. I think she's going to think that Mike is cuter than me, but we're going to have a poll in the bottom on that one. So thank you again. This has been Elevated Thoughts.
Of course. Thank you for the time, Charles. Looking for another one.